So how do you raise I to various powers? Well, it's pretty neat. We actually need to start from the beginning, not at 27. So first off, what is I to the 0? Well, what is anything to the 0? Anything to the 0 is 1. So I to the 0 is also 1. Okay, that's the start. So what is I to the 1? Well, I to the 1, well, anything to the 1 is itself. So I to the 1 is I. Okay, so I squared. Well, we did this before in another video, but let's look over here. And, well, we know that I is the square root of negative 1. Like, just by definition, that's what I is. So if we square both sides, this square and this square root cancel each other out. And that shows us right there, I squared equals negative 1. I squared equals negative 1. And then, continuing on, what is I cubed? Well, again, come to the side. Well, isn't I cubed I times I squared? Just because that's what cubed means. So, well, if I cubed is I times I squared, and I squared is negative 1, I cubed is I times negative 1, which is negative I. And then I to the 4th, well, there's a few ways you could approach that. My favorite way to approach it is I squared times I squared. That's I to the 4th, right? And I squared is negative 1. So that's negative 1 times negative 1, which is 1. And once we get that, that's the really powerful tool. Because if I to the 4th is just 1, that allows us to do a lot of things. Like, for example, what is... Well, now let's just come up here. The example is I to the 27th. What is I to the 27th? Well, we can separate I to the 27th. Because isn't I to the 27th? Let's see. I to the 4th times 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 I to the 4th. How many i's is that? 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. So then we need 3 more. That's right? Because you can just combine all those. That's I to the 27th. Well, what is I to the 4th? We just said I to the 4th was 1. So look at what we have now. We have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times I cubed. So all of this is just equal to I cubed. And what is I cubed? That's right over here. I cubed is negative I. So I to the 27th is equal to I cubed, which is equal to negative I. So see how I did that with the... Like, I took out how many groups of I to the 4th can we take out. And we don't even care how many we take out. We just care what's left over. So we're dividing it by 4. And we're looking at the remainder. So like with I to the 101, what's the closest number to 101 that's divisible by 4? Well, it's 100. So I to the 101 is I to the 4th a whole bunch of times. We don't even really care, but see how it is 25 times. Times I to the 1. And so this I to the 4th, this is just 1 to the 25, which is just 1. So it's just 1 times I. So it's just I. So the whole deal with these problems is you're dividing the exponent by 4. And you're looking at the remainder. So see, 101 divided by 4. The remainder is 1. So that's why this is equal to I to the 1st. 27 divided by 4. The remainder is 3. So it's equal to I cubed, which is negative I.